Hello everyone, this is Steve with Grow Time. Today we're going to be butchering some chickens. These here are big fatty white chickens. We call them Godzillas. So that is our project today. We're only going to be butchering the big white ones. When I butcher them, I use every bit of them. So today we're going to butcher them, quarter all the meat up, and keep a couple whole, package it, and then make a stock out of all the carcasses and can it up. First, what you do is pick which ones you want to butcher, and what I do is grab them and try to keep them calm and then kill them, and then what we do is hang them up on the fence and let them bleed out and rinse them off and clean them up a little bit and get them ready for the hot bath. Alright, so here we are, we got our water bath going, and you want the temperature right about 175, 150 the lowest, 180 being the highest. And what we're going to do is take the chicken and you just want to dunk it in for a few seconds, pull it out, dunk it in for a few seconds and pull it out. And then what should happen is the feathers just pull right off. If you go too hot, what happens is then the skin rips when you try to pull the feathers off. If you go too cold, then the feathers don't come out easy. You want the feathers to just kind of come right off. Once you get the bird cleaned up enough to your liking, what you're going to do next is you're going to cut this here and here and remove that. And then also what I do is cut the tail off here because there's an oil gland, and if you cook that oil gland, it'll make the meat kind of taste funny. And then you're going to want to make an incision right here and come down around the butt, and then you're going to want to reach inside the cavity and pull the guts out. And this here is the finished product. So you make your incision around here, cut the tail off, run the blade very carefully, you don't want to puncture the guts, run the blade and cut the skin down to here. And then what you want to do is reach along the top of the breastbone and push down and try to grab the lungs and then pull it all out. And one thing you want to look for to make sure you don't puncture is the gallbladder. And the gallbladder is a little green thing like that, and it's usually wrapped around one of the livers. I've never punctured one, and I'm not super gentle, and it's kind of difficult because your hands are so big trying to reach inside there, but you definitely don't want to puncture that. And you cut the legs off here and the head, and then there is a food gland that runs along the neck that you also want to separate from the neck before you pull the guts out. And that's your finished bird, ready to be packaged or throw it in the oven and roast it. Now this bird we are going to quarter up, and to quarter it up you're going to want to cut along the blade here. There's a blade, it's called the breast blade. You cut along here, and then you cut along the bottom here, and you cut the breast off. And then for the thighs and drumsticks, you cut along here and sever the joint right about here, and then cut right along the edge of this outline of the leg. As soon as you start cutting, you'll see where it separates. And then the carcasses we're going to use to make our stock. The wings, some of them hemorrhage when butchering them, unless you use a killing cone, which I don't. So the wings, if they're good, I keep them. If not, I throw them in the stock pot. So here you can see that's the joint that you want to separate, and then there's a blade right here that you want to cut under, and you separate that joint and cut under the blade, and then when you flip it over, you're going to cut along here, as you can see this one, just like that, and you cut along there, grab the thigh or grab the drumstick and hold it up, and then you can cut any pieces to separate it. This here is the end product of quartering the chicken. You got your breast blade here, you got your two breasts that ran along there that you cut underneath that blade and this blade to get that breast off, and then you have your wing right there at that joint and that joint, and then underneath is going to be right there, is that joint is going to be your thigh, and that joint will be your thigh to separate it from there. The chicken's all quartered up, and we're going to make our stock. So now that I got the chicken all cut up and processed, now we're on to making our stock. I got carrots and garlic, onions, celery, and some mushrooms, and everything's going to go in this 30-quart stock pot. I put the basket strainer at the bottom, so when everything's done and I start laying on all my stock out and I get towards the bottom, I can lift the basket with all the carcasses and any vegetables that are left, and just lift it all out as one, rather than trying to fish all the little pieces out and get the rest of the stock from the bottom. All of our chicken carcasses are in the stock pot. All our veggies are at the bottom. The basket's at the very bottom. I use a minimum of 6 carcasses to make my stock, and then all the veggies go in there. About 4 onions, 2 heads of celery, about 10 large carrots, or about 8 ounces of mushrooms, and a good cup size of peeled garlic. And we're going to fire this thing up and let it cook all day long, and then tonight we'll put it in mason jars and can it up. Okay, so the stock is done. It's cooked for about 10 hours. You can cook it longer if you want. That's just about as much time as I have for today. So 10 hours. Now we're gonna put it in these jars and pressure cook it. So these jars, you want to wash them with warm soapy water. The lids and the rings, I wash them all warm soapy water, rinse them out real good, set them out to dry. And then you're going to fill each jar, and you're going to leave about 1 inch of head space. There's usually a marker on it. I usually use that marker right there. You don't want to fill it anything more than that, because you want to give it some room to vent. And then when you tighten the lids, when you put these lids on top, make sure this ring is dry. Put it on top, make sure this is dry. Wipe it down with a dry rag or paper towel. And then when you put the ring on, only tighten the ring on just fingertip tight. If you over tighten it, what I've found that happens, the jar isn't allowed to vent, and then the bottoms will blow out and burst, and then you lose all your stock or whatever that you're canning up. So make sure you only finger tight them. So the stock is all in the jars, and you see we left 1 inch or so of head space. And before you pressure cook it, you can see how you can push the lid down and it flexes. After you pressure cook it and you let it sit, it should not do that. It should create a vacuum inside the jars. And after you let it sit for 24 hours, if there is any air space where you can push the lid up and down, then it's no good. Throw it out. Okay, so after this thing cooks for 25 minutes, what you're going to want to do is carefully pull this off, and all the steam will start to shoot out from this pot, and allow it to completely release all the steam. And then you're going to carefully open this pot. You want it to release all the pressure before you open this. You can open the pot, check your cans, don't touch them because they will be hot, but I like to push down on them and make sure no jars broke, and then have this tool here to grab them, and you can grab them and set them out. I usually wait to grab them and set them out until maybe 10 minutes or so after I open the lid, to let them cool down a little bit. Especially if you live in colder climates, you don't want to pull out super hot jars and let them cool off too quickly, otherwise they could crack. So this here is the finished product. All the stock is canned up, pressure cooked. You do not have to refrigerate it. After you let it cool for 24 hours, push on the lids and make sure that they're all vacuumed down. If any of them pop, like there's still air inside the jars, then they're no good. After you pull it out of the pressure cooker, if you notice some of them are starting to pop, like there's still air in there, after an hour or so, you can put it in the refrigerator, so that way if it didn't pressure cook properly, you can still use it. But if you let it sit out and it didn't pressure cook properly, then it's no good, and you might as well just throw it out. So absolutely always check these lids before you go to use anything that you pressure cook, because if there's air in here, that means bacteria grew and it's spoiled and it's no good. So that's it. Everything's pressure cooked, canned. Put it on the shelf and store it. Thanks for watching.